I got this idea from Lucy's video on her mid-year freakout. She decided to combine the mid-year freakout book tag with the mid-year check-in book tag. So I was like, okay, I like those ideas. I like some of the questions that she answered, so I was like, let me do it too. So I went through some of the questions and I managed to, I came up with like 15 questions that I am willing to answer. I will link the creators of the book tags down below. Chami and Earl Grey Books are the creators of the mid-year book freakout tag, and Dane and Harriet Rose are the creators of the mid-year book check-in. I'll link all their channels and videos and the questions, the original questions, and my question selection in there in case this might be a thing. Let's get to this. First question. How many books have you read so far this year? Let's see. Wow, it's 13 books. I honestly didn't feel like I read that many books. But then again, that's kind of comparing myself to how other people read, and I feel like other people read a lot more books than I did. I'm pleased with what I wasn't expecting 13. I thought it was like 6, so I didn't do too bad. What genre was your most read of the year so far? It's actually a toss-up between, I guess, fantasy and contemporary. So it's just like, I feel like they're half-half. Actually, between the two, 6 for contemporary, but 7 for fantasy. So like, I read lots of fantasy. What was your favorite slash best book of the year you've read? I'm not gonna lie, my favorite read of the year so far was The Coldest Winter Ever. Granted, there are a bunch of other books that I read that I enjoyed, but like rereading this, I enjoyed it so much. It's a classic for me. This is like my best book of the year. Everything else that I read was great, but this, she did that. What was your best sequel you've read so far of this year? I haven't read any sequels yet. I have sequels that I want to read. I already read Cinder, so I wanted to read Scarlet, but never got to that. And I read Shadow and Bone. I was like gonna start Siege and Storm and then got sidetracked by like a readathon or like a book for the book club I'm a part of. But haven't gotten to those yet. What was your biggest reading surprise? I will say my biggest reading surprise was the Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. I went into this book not necessarily expecting to like hate it or anything. I was just kind of indifferent. I was just expecting to learn from it, but I didn't expect to learn so much and feel connected to so much in this book. I learned so much about feminism and how patriarchy affects our society. This book, I would say, is a really great 101 into, I guess, feminism and into understanding how patriarchy affects our society. Biggest reading disappointment, The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. I went into this book kind of excited about it. It was like a fictionalization of the real life House of Extravaganza, the first Latinx house in the ballroom scene. I went in thinking like, oh, this is gonna be so good. It's magical in that way that like, I don't know, gay culture can be magical. I thought it was gonna be very Paris is Burning, very Pose, and it is kind of that. But in reading this book, I didn't like Joseph Cassara's writing. For me, it just didn't work. I'm not someone who likes too much poetry and ephemeralism. I don't know if that's a real word, but ephemeralism in what I read. I read like a comment or something where someone said that like his pacing was a little off, and I do feel like it was a little off. Like I feel like this book could have been cut down a little shorter. That was the most disappointing thing about this book. It was just like I didn't like his writing. I think he did a great job. He told a great story, but beyond that, I just was not loving the execution. I appreciated the story so much though. Name a new favorite author. In all of the books that I've read so far, I don't think I got a new favorite author. Closest to new favorite author would probably be Alice Cott. I love this story so much. I love this book. I love the story. It was so beautiful. It was just like, it's dystopian and it's just like interesting characters, interesting like story. It was just, this is a really great book. This is a beautiful book. I loved it. I had so much fun reading this. I enjoyed it so much. It's so good. Newest fictional crush. You know what? Going into this, I did not think I had a fictional crush. I will say I used to, back in the day, have a crush on Midnight in The Coldest Winter Ever. And then after rereading this book, I was like, no, that nigga's a hotep, so no. That nigga's a little too hotepian for my taste. I mean, he's still fine, no, but still no. That's a no. That's a prompt no. I will say that, like, I realized that I think Kirby in the New World, that's like a fictional crush. Like, I didn't think I had one, but it's Kirby. Kirby's a fictional crush. The body, the emotional connection, the interesting sense of style, like just the kick-assness, like so smart, intelligent, just like, yeah, Kirby. It's gotta be Kirby. Like, he's amazing. He's fucking hot and very smart and very cool and just like really beautiful. Like, aspirational over here. This is the aspirational love of mine right now. Newest favorite character. I will have to go again with Kirby from The New World by Alice Cott and Trad Moore, but also Stella from The New World. I know they're like adorable together, but they're also like great people apart. Oh, such a good book. It's so beautiful. It's worth the read. I don't know if there's gonna be like another volume of this book, but I definitely want more of it. It's like, this is a really good book. I want to see where their story goes. A book that made me cry. There are no books that really made me cry. I don't think like any book, I don't know if any book's really ever gonna make me cry. We'll see one day maybe, but usually the closest to a book making me cry is me feeling touched by the book. The books that actually made me want to cry or came close to crying is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe by Benjamin Alire Science. It was a beautiful book. Also, I feel like The New World did that as well. There are male characters that are in touch with their emotions. They're just very that much in touch with who they are inside. And they're not scared to cry and feel things. They're just like very honest about it. Like, yo, this emotional honesty is necessary, which also kind of ties back into The Will to Change, because it talks about like men being more emotionally connected. These are great books that touched me and almost made me cry and just made me feel emotional. Beautiful books. I will say also The House of Impossible Beauties. It also kind of impacted me close to the end because it got like real traumatic close to the end, and I was just like clenched chest, like it was just terrible. Like, with all its issues with the writing, it was worth it to get to that ending where things got real traumatic and tragic. It really just touched me, like, and it got me like really in my feelings. A book that made me happy. I will say The Coldest Winter Ever made me happy. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe made me happy. And The New World made me happy. But I will say that The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, it definitely made me happy. Although the end was a cop-out happy ending, and when I read it, it kind of hit me like, that's left field. But it was also just nice that it ended on such a beautiful, hopeful note. Well, hopeful might not be the right word, because I feel like hopeful would have been more realistic, because then it wouldn't have been such a sudden turnaround. It would have just been like, we're working towards turning things around. But I like that happy ending, that real nice wrap up, that cute wrap up at the end. That made me happy about this book. The most beautiful book you've acquired this year. The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. I love the cover. I think the cover is so beautiful. That's what makes the book even more disappointing. It had such a beautiful cover, and the story within, it just didn't match the cover. Like, this is such a beautiful cover. I loved it. I think I actually saw an article before I actually read this book, like around the time this book was about to come out. Like, the artist was explaining how they came up with the concept and how they created it and went about making this what it is. It is like one of the most beautiful books I've acquired so far this year. Next would actually be the New World. I feel like this was such a beautiful cover that I acquired, but so is the rest of the book. The rest of this book is so beautiful. It's just such beautiful artistry, imagery. It's wild, it's crazy. It's giving me like so much Adventure Time, Steven Universe vibes with the artwork. So I love it. It's beautiful. A new release you haven't read but want to read. A new release that I love the premise is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Like, it just sounds so me. It just sounds like something that when I was growing up, I wanted to read, and something that I still want to read now. So I want to read that. So I want to get that book, pick that up, and read it. I've just been hearing great things. I heard like everybody's talking about like it just like it touched them. I've only heard like one negative review where it was just like, this was not all that and was a little problematic, sis. But I'm like, I'm looking forward to reading it. Another one I want to read is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, because I keep hearing great things about that, and I enjoyed Poet X. I'm not super excited about With the Fire on High, but I'm definitely really want to read it. Also, I want to read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I love The Hate You Give. I feel like there are other books that I want to read, but I can't think of them. I will say another release that I recently found out about is a comic called Excellence by Brandon Thomas. Basically, the elevator pitch for it is that it is kind of like this black Harry Potter kind of story where it's just like these black kids who like they do magic, but I think it's like set in the city, and I'm just like, okay, like you got me. This is I like this concept. I like this synopsis. I'm going to check it out, and the artwork looks pretty cool. The story looks really good, so I'm looking forward to reading that. What are your most anticipated reads for the second half of the year? My only anticipated read for the second half of the year, Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. It's gonna be in December. It's probably for the best, and I think Tomi did that for me. She pushed it back to December because she knew I was taking my time to get to Children of Blood and Bone. I'm trying to get to Children of Blood and Bone very fast, just in case they decide to push the date back up from December, but I also kind of want to get some other books out the way first, and then kind of save like the best for last kind of thing. I'm definitely looking forward to reading Children of Blood and Bone, but I'm looking forward to the release of Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I'm excited about getting into the Orisha series and just getting immersed and enveloped in it. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Okay, so first off, the sequels that have been on my agenda to read. Scarlet and Siege and Storm, I need to get to reading these books. I have to read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I have to finish reading Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens, which I may include in my TBR for the reading rush. I gotta get started on An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I have to read More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I have to read Simon and the Homo Sapien Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I have to read Battle Royale by Kushan Takami, which is She's Still a Thick Girl, and I really I'm just looking forward to getting into this big old book. Like, it's gonna be it's probably gonna be a month-long ordeal, but I will make sure it sticks to a month and not go over it. So I will relegate my August to reading this. I have to read Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee and get into this series. I've heard such great things about it, and I'm excited about it because I love superheroes. I also have to read Midnight, A Gangster Love Story by Sister Souljah, because although I've read this before and I plan on rereading this, well, actually I probably won't reread this year, but I feel like I should reread it this year. But I'm looking forward to reading this. We will see if I read this year, or I will save it for next year as a reread. Maybe for Blackathon, maybe for Read So Lit. I have to start the Harry Potter series, so I am hoping to read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone this year and get started on the Harry Potter series, since I have never read the Harry Potter series. I've only seen the movies. I also have to read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, because this is long overdue. Since my reading of The Kite Runner and of The Book Thief, I have been meaning to read this for the longest. I want to read A Darker Shade of Magic, as well as Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I want to start the Raven cycle. So I definitely want to start. I want to read The Raven Boys. Although I've heard mixed reviews, mixed results on The Darkest Minds because there's superpowers involved. People have kind of compared it to an X-Men kind of story. And I read like the first chapter and I was into it. I like the writing. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. I want to read The Darkest Minds. And I also want to watch the movie and see how bad the movie is because I've heard bad things about the movie. And because of Jordan Harvey's recommendation, I want to read Red Rising because she's spoken so highly of Pierce Brown. And reading the synopsis of this book, it sounds amazing. It sounds like something I would enjoy and I would be into. So I'm looking forward to reading Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Also, I want to read Warcross by Marie Lu. I am looking forward to this. Also, I want to read the Volume 1 collection of Invincible. Invincible as a series is completely done now. So I am definitely excited about getting started on this big volume here. I've heard such great things about it. Shout out to DJ Ben Hameen from the For All Nerds podcast and his Comics Like Cops section where he talks highly about Invincible, as well as Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. Yes, this is Invincible by Robert Kirkman, as well as The Wicked and the Divine, which are all books that DJ Ben Hameen highly recommends. So I'm just like, I am looking forward to reading them. And I'm excited about reading Saga. And apparently Saga is on hiatus and left people on a devastating cliffhanger. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to try to catch up. But at the same time, I'll take my time because I'm not sure I actually want to wait on this devastating cliffhanger with the rest of everybody else that's been keeping up. I'm just going to be like, when they drop Saga again, I'm going to be right there, like, right on time and be like, okay, so this devastating cliffhanger has hit me. Now, on to the next book, because we're not sticking in this spot for too long, okay? We will see if I read all 21 of these books before the end of the year, in this, just basically in the second half of the year, because I will try. I'm gonna keep it real. I probably ain't gonna read all of these books. Keeping my options open. I know what my priorities are. It will be Siege and Storm and Scarlet, making sure I get those read. Making sure to read Children of Blood and Bone, The Alchemist, Battle Royale, Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens, Simon and the Homo Sapien Agenda, and More Happy Than Not. So that was my mid-year book freak out. Check in and comment if you feel the need. And I'm out this bitch like Fleek.